As the winner of Most Innovative Use of HR Technology in 2017, congratulations.
Thank you.
How can technology help companies improve their recruitment strategies and attract talent?
It's a game changer. So let me start small. I know that within the HR profession, a lot of the folks in this chosen career path struggle with technology. It's not a lot of our strengths. I've been in the industry now for over 15 years, and I remember when I first started, it was paper and paper-based filing. My very first job was to file pieces of paper into alphabetized files in rows and rows of filing cabinets. Thankfully, those days for me have concluded. However, that's still the case in some HR organizations today. So I think to start with, first and foremost, is looking at technology as an automator or as an enabler to get rid of those manual, repetitive, administrative tasks that just don't add any value. So I'm not talking about chatbots now. I'm not talking about AI. I'm not talking about augmented reality or virtual reality. I'm talking about the very basic things. So what we did at YISC was we focused on the foundational elements of technology. We automated those manual repetitive tasks by doing things such as digitizing our onboarding packets. So as an example, when someone is hired in our organization, their contract, all their forms, whether they be tax forms, policies, government regulation forms, are all sent to the candidate electronically. They're all signed by the candidate electronically, and when they sign them, they go automatically to that person's personnel file. Nobody in HR handles the form. Nobody in HR is following up with a spreadsheet to see what forms have been completed and what hasn't. We really can automate that process. Here's the other part. If the candidates should for some reason forget one or two forms, the system will trigger reminders to them on a recurring basis to make sure those forms are completed. That notification also goes to their manager and to human resources. And 7 days after the original offer, if the paperwork has not been received in its entirety, we actually rescind the offer automatically through the system. So the benefit is we don't have to spend that time tracking and using manual administration. The system is doing all that for us. We just manage the escalations and the exceptions, which reduces our workload greatly in the administrative parts of the business. What that means is we can allocate finite resources to other functions and other tasks within the hiring process that really do add value. So for me, the things that add value are employment branding and social media. The candidate experience in terms of giving them that white glove service, being available to answer questions and concerns. That to me is the value added that we provide within the function. Now, having said that, that's the very basics of using technology. The next layer up, which we're looking at right now at YISC, is implementing technology to automate those first level escalations. So I mentioned earlier chatbots. It is entirely possible now within a very, very small budget to have chatbots placed on your ATS or your hiring website that can answer very basic questions for candidates that they have. For instance, where is this job located? Can you give me a copy of that job description? Can you please tell me a bit about the company's culture or charitable giving? We can program chatbots to answer the majority of questions that we receive today from candidates, the ones that are repetitive and come up over and over and over again, and give the candidate that real life experience, or the candidate that the impression of a real live experience. They can type into the chatbot when it's suitable for them. If it's 2 o'clock in the morning local time or 10 o'clock in the evening, they can engage the chatbot. And the goal is to have 80% or more of those repetitive first level questions be automated. So again, we can take our finite resources and allocate them to the functions that are going to add real value, not just going and answering the same question over and over and over again. By the way, for those who've made the correlation, you can use the exact same technology as a replacement for your intranet. So I know a lot of HR departments, including my own, shepherd and field a lot of questions from the business around policy interpretations, leave of absence request forms, scheduling requests. All that as well can be automated through a chatbot. But before I go down that path, I want to pause for a second. This is where the majority of professionals that I talk to mention something about automation in the context of job security. And HR is not immune to the changes that are going to face industries across the globe. Automation and technology is going to remove jobs. And if you're in an administrative role that is very transactional and very manual, whether you're in human resources or marketing or finance or insurance or media, your job will eventually be automated in its majority by technology. However, we're still going to need you to stay in the organization to help us with the critical pieces, which I define as relationships. There are still a lot of things that technology and chatbots cannot do for us today, and that's where human beings are going to provide the real value going forward. The same methodologies were used coming out of the Industrial Revolution. People who worked in the farms and in agriculture were afraid that factories and automation in those industries was going to completely transform the industry and that thousands and thousands of people would be out of work. The reality is the economy soared coming out of automation. The rate of GDP rapidly increased in the Western world, and new jobs were created that never existed before when it was just purely husbandry and farming and irrigation. New jobs were created and people filled those jobs. I think you're going to see the same thing here. I was having this chat with somebody, yesterday. There weren't web designers 20 years ago. There were not social media managers 20 years ago. There were not a lot of different roles that exist today that are now seen as critical in most businesses, didn't exist 20, 25, 30 years ago. However, if I flash forward 20, 25, 30 years from now, I think it's fair to suggest that some of the roles that exist today also won't be present, but they'll be replaced by other roles that are going to allow us to continue to enhance the human experience, which is ultimately what HR professionals really signed up to be doing.